Hi, I'm doing Paul McWhorter's Pico W lessons, and this is my solution to his lesson number 3, in which he asked us to use 4 LEDs to represent a binary counter to count up from 0 to 15. Right, for this lesson I'm using a really nifty thing that Brian made me buy. It's a Pico breadboard kit, and it came in the Geek Pie starter kit. And what it is you have a half-size breadboard which you stick onto this breadboard kit, and you put in your Raspberry Pico or your Pico W, and then it's all nicely labelled for what the pins are. And then you have these connectors either side, and it means you can use female jumper cables, which I find a lot easier. They don't tend to fall out, and the only problem is that if you've bought a nice kit of these really short, neat cables, I think they only come in male, so I'm having to use the big loopy things. But that's a small price to pay. And then up here you've also got 4 5 volts, 4 3.3 volts, 4 grounds, and down here you've got your buzzer, and you've got 4 buttons all ready to go. And here you've got your connections for your 4 buttons. The bottom one is a beep that really you need to put a jumper cable or something on, because otherwise if you touch it by mistake it beeps, and it's really annoying. And then you've got your 4 LEDs that are built in, and then you've got your 4 connections to put your jumper wires on there to connect up when you want to use them. And the beauty of this is you don't have to use resistors. The resistors are built into the LEDs. I know maybe this is defeating the object, because a lot of the time people want to learn how to use resistors, but I find resistors very difficult because I can't see which ones they are. My eyesight is not great. So there we have it. That's what I'm using, but of course I could just as easily be using an ordinary Pico without the breadboard kit. Right, my code, if I can find it. That isn't it. That is it. I will close that. Right, this is my program, and I start by importing LED from Pico 0. I'm using LED because it makes everything so Pico 0 because it makes everything much easier. And then I'm just importing sleep, and I change that. Right, so I've defined a list, which is just a list of the 4 LEDs that I'm using, that are connected to the 4 on the board, and that's all you have to do. You just go LED with a number and they're ready to go. And here I've just put the number of LEDs equals the length of that list, because it's much easier to just refer to num LEDs rather than have to go len LEDs, and it can all look a bit complicated. And that I have defined 2 to the power of the length of the LEDs is the number that you can count to using 4 LEDs minus 1. So if you've got 4 LEDs, 2 to the 1 is 2, and it's 4, 8, 16. So you can, with 4 LEDs, you can count to 15. But I just set that up. The overflow number is 16 there. Now I've put it all in a try except loop. This just is so that if you press Control C, it will turn all the LEDs off for you. So try, and you go down to accept. Keyboard interrupt, which it activates, excuse me, activates when you press Control C, and that is you just turn all the LEDs off, print out a nice little message, and that's it. Now go in a bit further. I've put this in an endless loop while true. As Paul says, when is true true? True is always true. So it will stay in that loop until you press Control C or you press stop. Right, my actual program is only 4 lines long. So I've got for I in range to overflow number. So that means it's counting, if I'm using 4 LEDs, it's counting from 0 to 15. And then within that, it's counting from 0 to 3 for the number of LEDs that I've got. 0, 1, 2, 3. Right, this is the only line in the program that actually does anything. LEDs J dot brightness. That is the brightness of the first LED when J was 0, 1, 2, 3. And you're setting it to this very strange thing. What I've done is I've converted, well, I will show you what I've done. If we go into the shell, get rid of that rubbish. If you want an easy way of getting the binary representation of a number, you just go, if you go bin brackets 16, and it gives you a nice string that has got a prefix on it of 0b, and then that is a binary representation of 16. If you go bin 5, for example, it doesn't give you any leading zeros. So I'm wanting to use the 4 digits 1, 2, 3, 4 as flags for whether the LED is on or off. But I've lost it, and I thought, rats, how do I get that to display as 4 or more digits? So I thought, right, if I go bin, and then we'll try 6, for example, and if you add on 16 like that, that will set the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th from the left, right, 5th from the right digit to 1, which means you've preserved all of your 4 digits there. So if we have a look at that, yep, 0, 1, 1, 0, that's 2 plus 4. So that works pretty damn well. Right. So that is what I'm doing there. So I've taken the binary representation of I, which is the number I first thought of, the number I'm counting up to, plus 16. And then I want to ignore the first, that J plus 3 means I'm ignoring, I'll go back to the other view, shell, I'm ignoring the first 3 characters because that's just to signify that it's binary, and that's a 16. So that's what that does. And that is either a 0 or a 1, and you set the brightness. Now the brightness of the LED, if it's 1, full brightness, if it's 0, it's off. And then just sleeping for 1 minute. So we'll try running this little thing, see if it works. There's my camera. I think you'll be able to see. We'll run the program. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 0, and then it starts again. And when I press Control C, all the lights go off. Hurrah! Now, if you decide you only want to use 3 LEDs, or you could use 5 LEDs, or you could as many as you wanted, if you just change the list of LEDs to that, so now I'm only using 3 LEDs, and hopefully it knows now that I can only count up to 7, and it will flash accordingly. So we'll try running that. Fingers crossed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Off. Hurrah! Hurrah! Right. Control C. There we have it. Now, I realised after writing this, it seemed very familiar, that when I was doing Paul's Raspberry Pi lessons, I was trying to do everything on the Pico. I didn't know anything about the Pico. I just thought, I wonder if I can do his lessons on the Pico. So I converted every program to run on the Pico as well, just to see if I could. So I looked at my program that I had written a long time ago, and amazingly, no, I've just closed it. I have just closed my file. Right, that one. Yeah, it looks very, very similar. Apart from, I didn't know about Pico 0, so I'm using from machine import pin. And there we have the LED pin numbers, and I've declared other things and what I'm counting to. Now, when you're using machine and pin, you have to actually say, right, that for that pin number, it's an LED with pin out and LED, and you put that to 0, so it's off. But then the rest of it is pretty similar to that, apart from the syntax is a bit different. It's LED.value as opposed to LED brightness, and I haven't put this in a while loop, and I haven't put in a try except, so all it does, it just runs once and then stops. I hope it will run once and then stop. Right, we'll try running this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and off. Right, that was just to show that you can still use machine and pin.